Welcome everybody to this virtual meeting that we're having today. In these times, I suppose we're all getting pretty good at it. My name is Joe Dixon. I retired from the San Diego Unified School District 5 years ago and started my own consulting business. Also presenting today is Tom Rayburn from the Starship Facilitron, which you'll understand why I said that when you see Tom. And Dennis Ziegler, who's the director of M&O for the Lake Elsinore Unified School District, and who's been doing that kind of job for a long, long time. Next slide, Thomas.
You got it.
Okay, so we're gonna start out with a couple of definitions because this is really important as we go through this presentation. And if you're in the M&O world, maintenance is defined as activities involved with repair. And people who have seen me talk about this before know how important I place this, because it's not cleaning, and it's not the day-to-day stuff. The day-to-day stuff, next slide, Tom, is operations. And sometimes that gets confused, and we see a lot of times routine restricted account having custodians and groundskeepers charged to it. But if they're not doing repair, really, according to the California School Accounting Manual, not be put into the routine restricted account. It's a dilution of the whole purpose of the 3% that SB 50 in 1998 required. So anyway, remember that as we go through this. Maintenance is repair, operations is the day-to-day physical plant schedule things. Next slide, Tom. So the deferred maintenance fund, who remembers the deferred maintenance fund? Well, you still have it. Districts still have the account. The difference is with local control funding formula, it was rolled into your LCAP and really in effect it eliminated the state match to your funds in the deferred maintenance plan. So typically out of your 3% or routine restricted that you're required to have, you take 0.5% of the 3%, use that for deferred maintenance, and then get the state match for that 0.5%. But that's all gone. So it's really important that we talk about how are we going to maintain our school and what does local control accountability plan mean. Next slide, Tom. So the way it's billed is every district gets a base grant, a certain amount per student, and then you get a supplemental grant, which is 20% of the base grant, and that is based on children in poverty, and that's English learners, low-income students, foster youth. Typically, your free and reduced lunch program will be pretty close to the number of students who will qualify for that. Now, if you have a district with more than 55% of the students in poverty, and you see the concentration grant even adds more to the program. And so deferred maintenance is really now in the supplemental grant and concentration grant part of the LCFF. Next slide. So there was a lot of big goals in LCFF and LCAP. I remember when I first came out, it was requiring a class size reduction of 24:1 in K3. That got modified because that was difficult to achieve for a lot of districts, mostly on the facility side, but also on the expense side. So that was eliminated. And then the 3% requirement for routine restricted was removed in the recession because of, we needed some flexibility to keep programs going. But that's now back into the fold, and you have to have the 3% for Prop 51 funds as well. Next slide. So some of the components of LCAP, local control accountability, and there's 8 state priorities, 10 if you're in a county office. And I always make the argument that maintenance and operation, much like the California Department of Ed calls themselves Office of Learning Environments, I think M&O could be called Department of Learning Environments because M&O can be involved in each one of these 8. Tom, but if we boil it down, we're looking at basic necessities, parental involvement, student-pupil achievement or engagement and school climate are really to the heart of M&O, and it's really easy to make the case for that. Here's the deal. Maintenance folks have to get involved and tell the story of what they need in their districts, in their schools. Otherwise, as we always say, buildings don't talk, and there's a lot of other pressures on those funds. So you need to be there. If you're in the M&O world or you're involved at all in maintenance and operations, you need to be at those LCAT meetings stating your case for what you need. So clean, safe, and functional. That came out of the Williams lawsuit settlement. So the schools have to be clean, they have to be safe, and everything has to be working. And everybody's hopefully is familiar with the facility inspection tool, the annual inspection. And here's what I'll say about the facility inspection tool, and I think Dennis is going to talk about it a little bit more later. But it's not a statewide consistent standard. I've seen schools where it would be written up as a deficiency, a certain condition, and other ones it's not. So it's not a real consistent way to measure the condition of your schools. Priorities 3 and 6, the curb appeal is so important in your schools. Most people don't come into your school, they don't even have kids in your school. So you have to keep the school looking good. And I can tell you, if the school looks good, as people are driving by, they think the whole district's doing a great job. We're hearing more and more about air quality now, and not just with the COVID-19 situation, but before that, with stories in Sacramento Bee and on television in the Bay Area. There's been a lot of stories about that. I know Assemblymember O'Donnell had a bill addressing that, but it was pulled as we work through this COVID-19 emergency now. But it's coming back, and we're gonna have some legislation about indoor air quality in schools. Next up. So at this point, let me turn it over to Dennis, and he can walk us through some more specifics. Dennis.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this new world. So what I want to cover basically is what you will see out there, and the main goal of maintenance and operations is everybody needs to understand that we are customer service and we are here to support the educational process. So the main factor to always remember is here we are customer service. So some of the M&O goals you look at is staffing allocations. We plan our budgets. We look at what we can prevent from failing. One of the best things we can do is prevent a failure. So by having a preventative maintenance program, if we can catch a problem before it breaks down, not only are we saving money, but we are also preventing interruption to the classroom. Okay, good standards, and remember that our goal and our mission statement is we want to provide a safe, effective, well-maintained learning environment for all students and staff. And especially now during these times, you all know how important that is. So we want you to just look at the process of what you're going to do when people come back. How are you going to get ready? You're going to have a plan for that. And we need to start planning now before school reopens. So one of the things we want to look at is the facility inspection tool. In my opinion, probably the most valuable tool we have, and Joe covered that every school district is different. Every way you use it is different. But I think coming back, when we start going back to the classroom, that fit is going to be very important and give us the opportunity to check our schools before the students come back. And then our responsibilities, again, we have all the responsibilities we deal with. I just think it's important that when you're working with your CBO, you're working with your assistant soups, that you let them know what actually M&O is responsible for, because one thing you're seeing now, and our school district is totally shut down now because of this virus, and you see how much work we actually do. So it's very important that you inform your stakeholders what are the responsibilities of M&O and what you do.
Hey, Dennis?
Yes.
You know, I just want to emphasize your point there. The compliance piece to maintenance and operations is a huge, huge undertaking. It's getting greater and greater all the time. I think this list here is partial. I don't think it covers everything. So I would encourage anybody in M&O to write down all the compliance issues that you have to deal with and how much time it takes. That's a good tool to take forward as you go fight for money and fight for your budget, because these have nothing to do with repair.
Yeah, I could chime in on that also, Joe. One of the things that we did at Capistrano Unified was conceptually, so that staff felt good about what they did, we outlined all of the responsibilities that we had, but then would communicate what our responsibilities are to the school site staff, so that when we're interacting with the principals, we could set expectations better, as everyone feels the pressure of being responsible for everything. But kind of a nice analogy might be like a landlord or an apartment complex manager. Sometimes we in maintenance, we're responsible for the building, but it's important to communicate to the site staff that that's our responsibility. Sometimes what's inside those classrooms, even though they may think, oh, their desk is broke, they want us to repair it in maintenance, and we might in fact do that, but we want to quantify that these are our responsibilities. That way, that just overarching natural response of us to be responsible for everything doesn't overwhelm us, because we want to be able to achieve all of our objectives, and you only can achieve that by having them really delineated.
All right, and what you see here again is just a sample of the FIT document. You've all seen it. We all work with the same document, so we're not going to bore you with this, but I just think it's extremely important that you do your FIT every year and you determine how it's going to be done. We here use our custodian staff to use it, so we meet with the custodian staffs before it happens to make sure everybody's on the same page, because remember with the FIT, as Joe talked earlier, it's a snapshot of what you see the day you walk that site. So this is just one tool you can use along with your work order system and the other tools you have to move forward in making repairs. But the key thing to remember here is it is what it is. Do not falsify this document to make it look better, because it's going to hurt you in the long run. And then we're going to move into preventative maintenance. We'll cover this very quickly. Preventative maintenance, we're going to use PM as a source of planning events before they happen. So, and a good example of that would be your HVAC filters. You set up a preventative maintenance program where we get a work order to change the filters every quarter. So not only do we not have to re-put it into the work order system, but we are also doing the PM on it, and we have documentation for it. So the goal here is just to let you know a preventative maintenance program is very effective, and once you get it implemented, you do not have to go back and re-implement every year. So I highly recommend you work towards a PM program.
Hey, Dennis, if I could too, I bet you with the COVID, with the inspections that a lot of our districts will be doing, that might be a nice PM to put into your work order system. When all of us have work order systems, and all work order systems have a preventive maintenance component, and your preventive maintenance work order basically is, if it's like Dennis just mentioned, changing filters for HVAC, and it's these 3 steps, Dennis, it would be just as easy to put into the preventive maintenance a actual PM for cleaning, where maybe the deep clean is detailed out. These are the 10 things we want you to do per classroom, and make that a PM. And I'm just suggesting that as something that might be useful for folks to help them track their cleaning, because now you have an electronic record of having done it, just in case you're asked.
I think that's a great idea, especially for now. I think that's something we could all implement before we get back in the classroom, so we know exactly what we're doing. That's a great idea. And when we're looking at PM, we're talking basically, as Joe brought up earlier, we're all familiar with the deferred maintenance program, and basically you're PMing your high dollar items. So you all have a PM plan at your site. If you don't, you can look back into your records and pull out your preventative, or not your PM plan, but your deferred maintenance plan. Pull it out and take a look at it and build your PM program off of that. So when you talk about maintenance and you look at this slide here, you see no maintenance all the way to predictive maintenance, and you see what happens. And we all know a lot of school districts do no maintenance. You install a piece of equipment and we never go back and look at it again until it breaks down. That's the absolute worst thing we can do. So one thing we like to recommend is you do an inventory of all your equipment at your school sites and document all your high dollar items and put them on a PM schedule so you're looking at them. Because you see, as you move across there, you're going to get more efficient all the way across. So routine maintenance, which is basically we respond to emergencies and we're responding, it's much better if we have a PM schedule and we check that equipment, we look at compressors, we look at our HVAC equipment, and we can prevent it from breaking down. It just benefits everybody. So this is basically a slide showing you that the values of what we're looking at, roofs, electrical, flooring, everything has a life expectancy. So when you're putting together your inventory and you look at your sites, it's very easy to put that inventory together because your HVAC guys who are assigned to their school sites know that equipment. They could Google right down on top of that site and they can tell you the age of all that equipment, and you can do that with everything you have. So it's extremely important to know your capital projects, know how much everything's going to cost, and that's what you're going to develop your deferred maintenance plan and your 5-year plan with. And this is just a simple slide to show you that your vendors out there will do the work for you. So we have an asphalt contractor that went out and surveyed all our sites and put back the cost of repairs for us. So you can see that something like this is very valuable because you can share this with your CBO, and it's plain and simple, easy to understand what needs to be done, and it's done by your vendor at no cost to you. And this is just a plan we put together that, again, we inventory our sites. We know the asphalt, we know the roofing. We just have everything together when we sit down. So every year when we sit down with our CBO, we can actually show her a spreadsheet where she sees exactly what we're up against, because you know in M&O you will never have enough money to do everything you want to do. So you have to prioritize your projects. So I highly recommend you have a spreadsheet that shows what needs to be done, because you can always say, we've told you in the past this needs to be done, but however, there's not enough funding, so we're prioritizing. And then again, with your 5-year plan, this is just a simple slide to show you that our maintenance cost, if we were to go into it, would be $12 million. Well, we all know we don't have $12 million sitting around in that. So we've put together a 5-year roofing plan so we can show directly how much roofing we're going to attack each year. So it's very important that you recognize your problems, because your stakeholders are going to tell you, you never told us about this problem. So the worst thing you can do is assume there's no money and not notify everybody of what's going on. So I highly recommend you have a 5-year plan.
Yeah, and I'll second and add on to that. By communicating what your needs are, even if you know there's not enough funding for it, but by at least communicating, it's subtly also communicating that you're on it. And in terms of all the inventory of the asphalt, the roofs, all of your assets, your staff has those figures, or you probably have them historically in various maintenance plans or your historic deferred maintenance plans. So the key there I want to just kind of highlight is getting that information in front of your CBO to communicate not only the need, but to communicate that you're aware of the need and are on it.
You know, also, Dennis, if I could say something, you might be covering this a little bit more later, but this really shows the need to keep your deferred maintenance plan going and to keep money in your deferred maintenance. You're not going to come up with almost $13 million over 5 years out of your routine restricted maintenance to fix these roofs. A big project like that has typically always been deferred maintenance. So Fund 14 should be maintained by the district, and money should be put in that every year, just as if the state still had a deferred maintenance program.
And this is just some data that I like to use. You can put together and tell your your CBO or whomever you're dealing with that you have a lot of roof leaks and we have $12 million and it doesn't mean anything to them. But when you start putting together graphs showing school sites they're familiar with, using your work order system, showing how many leaks you have, they will listen to you much better. So I recommend here is you use data that right out of your work order system and show them every time it rains. Like right now we're getting poured on. That list is going to change, but I'm going to update it, put it in week in review so the board, our CBO, superintendent, everybody sees it, because it's very important they know that, hey, these leaks are real. Because when you look at it and you put data down and they'll tell you, well, you have $12.8 million worth of roofing, but that was done by a roofing survey company, and their job is to put on new roofs and make money. Well, in reality, we're showing you with these numbers right here, there is a real problem out there. And again, Tom, this is Tom's slide, and I use this every time we meet. It's all about getting improvement, getting better at what you do. It's not about good or bad, it's about the truth. And again, when you tell everybody everything's okay and you do your lines to the superintendent, your weekly, everything's good, they're assuming it is. So it's very important. I use real data. Go into your work order system, pull out, show them exactly what you're doing, where you stand. And again, it's not about being bad or good. It's doing the best you can with what you have. Tom, I know you're going to comment.
Yeah, I just want to, the need to just call it for what it is, because our jobs is just to take whatever we have, good or bad, and improve it. So it really doesn't matter if it's good or bad. Yeah, it kind of does. But, the reality is just take what you have and improve upon it, because that way, not only are you achieving your goals, but this ties in with the responsibilities of M&O. You want your staff to be motivated. It's really hard to motivate. It's more realistic that you only demotivate, you don't motivate. So if you can ascribe to that and recognize that, it's really hard to keep the guys, from being demotivated when they got too many responsibilities. So if people tell them that they're doing a bad job, they're just, it motivates them, and you're not going to get the productivity that you need. So by just being real honest and just saying, hey, this is what we have, this is what we're working with, and we're just going to take that and improve upon it, it makes it so much easier. And also, when you see scenarios where things, let's say you have a metric or you see a statistic and you go, oh, this is actually bad, we need to improve upon it. Well, if you have that, then at least you can go to your staff and go, hey guys, we have this situation here. Does anybody have an idea on how we can improve upon it? And then you may have one of your technicians, she might say, oh, we could do this and improve the electrical, whatever the problem might be. And now you're improving. And that's the best I think that you can do and hope for.
And again, we talked about 5-year plan. It's so important that you meet with your CBO, your assistant soup. Some of us even meet with our superintendents. Have your plan ready, have real dollars there. I meet with our CBO 3-4 times a year, and this plan changes every year. So I have to dial in. We're funded $1 million for deferred maintenance. So by the time we come back in April, I'm going to have to be ready and have my final plan and tell her this is what I'm moving forward to, because some of the projects will have to go out to bid. We'll have to schedule with contractors. So it's very important that you have data that makes sense to your CBO and make sure they understand what you're doing. And again, this is just a simple spreadsheet to show you how we do it. We start working and we finally got it down to $1 million plus, so I'll have to eliminate that extra money, get it down to, when I go into her office, I want it to be a solid $1 million realistic plan to say this money is spent. And then again, move very quickly, lessons learned. Competitive bid, unit price bids are probably one of the best tools in the world. I know I learned this from Joe. You have these available, it's already bid. So when summertime gets here, I can release projects without going out to bid, so I can get scheduled first. So that's going to really be important this year, because when these contractors come back, they're going to be very busy. So I just think it's very important that you have that ready. Communication with your board, communication with your people, your 5-year deferred plan. Make sure you have everything available to you, because you're going to find out somebody's going to ask you for this and you will not have it. So have everything available on your computer, so when you're asked at 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, you can answer that question for a board line. And then this is just the 60 days of summer, which this year isn't even going to be 60 days, but you know that summer used to be a true 3 months. We had a whole 3 months off. Now we're actually down to 60 days of summer, and they have summer school at all the sites. So you're working around the kids and students, you're working around staff all the time. So it's very important to have your projects scheduled early. Some projects can be done after hours, some can be done, because over the summertime, it's very hard to get everything in. So I just recommend you work with your vendors and see if you can't do stuff on weekends, do stuff during other breaks other than just focusing on summer.
Hey, Dennis, not to put you on the spot, but just, you've probably had conversations, I imagine, with kids being out right now with the COVID. Are you guys accelerating any of these, or are you in a position to accelerate some of these? Because I know most of us are thinking staging, and we kind of scheduled for summer as usual. What are you guys doing presently for your summer?
Yeah, that's interesting. We have projects moving forward right now that would have been done in the summertime, but they were projects that were already funded, so they were ready to go. So now we're taking advantage of that time because the contractors are readily available. They're easy to get at. And we're one of the few districts also building a school right now. So it's very interesting because the construction at the school site continues business as usual. So it's very interesting.
Have you noticed, are they doing their physical separation? Have you seen the contractors do some work yet? I know other districts are highlighting the need for physical separation of staff.
Yep, and then Riverside County now, that's a law that you have to wear your mask now when you go outside. But on the new construction site, you literally have to walk in the office, sign a piece of paper that states, to your knowledge, you don't have the virus, you don't have anything, and they literally check you in and out. But they are making sure they do their distance. They have to stay. And in construction, that's awful hard to do, but they are doing the best they can.
Well, let me just jump in this little off of the M&O thing that we're talking about. But remember, the governor's order exempted construction projects. Didn't say they were essential. They were exempt, all construction projects. A lot of districts now are doing resolutions to their boards to name the projects and call those projects essential, which helps with some of the local orders and some of the local pressures. It is important, as Tom suggested and Dennis said they do, to post guidelines and give contractors guidelines that meet the CDC requirements. But all projects can be moving forward now.
And then again, shared vision. I think that any successful department, it doesn't have to be M&O, it's anything you do, has to be a solid team approach. So it's very important that you work together with your team and make sure you have positive thinking. They take pride in their work. Always make sure they have the tools they need to do their job, because you all know in M&O we're understaffed. So if we give them the tools they need to work with, and just remind them to be smart, because they drive around a big white truck with a logo on it with a number. So they're representing the school district. So we just ask our people to be polite, be professional at all times, and be positive, because the thing I don't like to hear, and nobody likes to hear, I can't do this, I can't do that. Well, tell us what you can do and keep it on the positive side.
That's good, Dennis. I just wanted to say, as everybody knows, this was pre-COVID-19 days because there's no social distancing.
That it was. And then one of the things we like to do, and again, I learned this from Joe, and this is huge, is every year after our summer projects are done, we do a little presentation for the board, because the board has no idea. They know these projects are going on, but they have no idea the work and the planning it takes to get this done. So every year we name our projects. This one was named Mission Impossible. So at the end, we just did our presentation and we highlighted the M and showed them everything is possible. It just takes time and coordination. So make sure you let the board know how much work M&O and facilities does, because these projects do not do themselves.
All right. Now I want to kind of transition here and talk a little bit about data collection and more the hands-on approach to how to actually achieve some of these best practices and achieve some of these different plans. So one of the neat things that all of us have, and thanks to the deferred maintenance plan historically, we have records. When I say we, I mean you. All of us have records from our deferred maintenance plans. So one of the things that you can do to create a base of your inventory, your deferred maintenance, all these different things, which we could largely say are assets. You have existing plans right now. So if you are a new M&O supervisor, manager, and you're looking at this whole presentation, for example, and wondering, okay, how do I achieve this? Well, let's start with just right now, looking at the bullet list here, your 5-year deferred maintenance plan. So that's a PDF. So you'll have that somewhere in the district. If no one in your immediate vicinity has it, talk to your CBO. He or she probably has it. Your FIT, with your FIT tool, which is that spreadsheet that's also a PDF. The FIT tool giving you a status also tells you all the schools and all the locations in your district. So instantaneously, just by the FIT tool, by how it's designed, you have all of that information. You also have some from your financial accounting system. You could use that as well to build lists of what assets you have, meaning asphalt, roofing expenditures, HVAC expenditures. And then lastly, not listed there, but lastly, also your trade staff, they have all of this. So you can pretty much be sure that your electricians, they're not willy-nilly just kind of going to school and guessing and just, keeping it all in their head as to where the panels are. They have that written down somewhere as well. So I would encourage you to talk to your staff and delegate to them to give you lists of perhaps where all the panels are, if it's electrical, or if it's your general maintenance guys and they're overseeing some of the asphalt repairs. Have them list all these for you onto spreadsheets to help build this kind of plan. So the methodology here is take what you have existing, and then the action, this little action arrow underneath this, this is kind of giving you some little shortcuts on, well, how do I kind of manage, because that's a lot of data. One of the things that I use and have used successfully is the preventive maintenance portion of my work order system. And using the preventive maintenance, and for those of you who have not seen, well, what's a preventive maintenance work order? Okay, just to highlight, all work order systems are for tracking service requests, from the school sites, but also they'll typically have a module or a component where you add your preventive maintenance items, you say what they are, what task, and then you schedule that. So what I'm suggesting is, for example, if you have filters, of course, all of us have that, you will have a quarterly PM generate a work order with all the tasks on that. But you can also make a PM of the FIT tool. So you say on July 1st, we're going to do the FIT tool. That's the name of the PM. And then here's all the tasks and the locations that apply to. But that also could be extended to customer service surveys, where you're going to go out and say, well, on August 15th, we're going to do a site survey, or on September 1st, we're going to do a customer service survey. Well, just make that survey a PM. And it's an easy way for you to be able to accomplish these tasks. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take that data and then we're going to actually compile it into some useful data for the stakeholders. For some of these source documents, for example, the deferred maintenance plan, because it has all of the components of your assets, what I mean by that is it has wall systems, electrical, roofing, asphalt. So it'll actually list all of those different categories of assets that you have. One neat thing about that is you can Google and find state of California deferred maintenance useful life documents. So for a number of years, every couple of years or so, the state would actually generate, when the deferred maintenance plan was in process, they would generate a deferred maintenance plan. And usually in the appendix section of that, it would actually itemize the useful life of all the equipment, roofs, HVAC, and so forth. So it gives you a standard. Yes, Joe, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, sorry, Tom. I'm a school guy. I raised my hand.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to show my age here, but we used to, when we applied to the state, we had to, equipment in building components had to be a certain age. For example, rooftop package units, HVAC units, had to be 18 years old before you could replace them. And then it became more and more flexible as time came on or went by. But you could go to OPSC's website and go to deferred maintenance and Google your district or search for your district, and you'll find some of that information. There's some of the older stuff you won't, but deferred maintenance became easier to get to later in the program. But Dennis probably remembers those days where we had to list age of equipment, real specific stuff. And then it just became like I don't know, I guess a wish list. You just threw everything in there because you didn't know what you were going to do. So it changed over the years.
Yeah, well, and the thing is with those lists, for those who are looking at this and kind of going, it's a big deal, this is a lot, I'll do it tomorrow. Let me just encourage you, no, don't do it tomorrow. Let's do it today. Invite that your manager, your director, supervisor over at M&O. How does that make it easy for you? You have staff, delegate it. So basically have your senior admin possibly go and spend some time and search and collect the data. Delegate to one of your managers or direct reports, have them collect the data, but just start. That's really the key to this. Just start and get these lists going because the whole goal at the end of the day here is for you to have that information and then to be able to communicate to your stakeholders. And that's the only way that you're going to get the good funding that we all want. So, okay, so some of the actions that you can kind of take, kind of highlighting this delegation. So in collecting the data, this is going to be the more once you've established your lists, you're going to be able to go annually, and you should have your annual Williams inspections to help maintain it. You can treat your facilities master plan as a living document and make updates to that. You'll also want to compile, by the way, your work order data. Just because your work order data is reactive versus predictive or versus preventive. So you want to have your reactive data in there because that is cost justifying the investment in preventive maintenance. And then making those part of your PM system and your work order system. And then I'll highlight the custodial supervisor inspections, especially with COVID-19. And I'll kind of highlight a bigger principle. I got a slide on it, which I'll kind of slide over, which is, if you don't know something, don't worry about it, because here's the answer for like custodial supervisor. I don't know chemicals. I'm not custodial of custodial background, but I know this one thing: train, measure, report. Train your custodians on what they're responsible for. Measure, meaning have your custodial supervisor go out there and routinely do a checklist of the things that the custodian's responsible for, and then report on that. Now, what that achieves for you is, for you who doesn't know custodians, doesn't know the job, here's the thing. By your custodial supervisor going out and doing a checklist on a regular basis, they're basically rating the quality of service being done by your custodial team or your custodians individually. What that does is it causes the custodians to reverse engineer their daily activity to do what they know they're going to be rated on. So if you're going to be grading them once a month or once a quarter on these 10 things, I guarantee you, your day custodian, he's going to make sure, or she's going to make sure, that those 10 things are done. And what that does is it achieves for you that clean, safe, effective school environment. So that'll hold true also for with COVID-19 and doing some deep cleaning. Have an established checklist of these are the things that we're going to do. Incorporate that into your custodial site surveys, and voila, the custodians, the staff will reverse engineer what they're doing to make sure that they're achieving that so that they get that good rating. That also applies towards electricians, plumbers, general maintenance, the whole staff. Now, when you're doing that data collection, or if you're going out and doing the supervision or evaluations, it's really important to be able to provide that to staff, because they need to know what they're responsible for, of course. But if you go out there and the custodial supervisor isn't necessarily communicating to the custodian that he's actually checking that, you're done. That's not going to help. We really want you to be able to convey to your staff what you're actually tracking, how they're doing, so that all of you know, and this goes back to the truth thing. It's not whether you're doing good or bad, it's about the truth, because the truth gives you the ability to take whatever you do have and improve upon it. So we need to be able to provide to stakeholders the truth so that we can say, okay, this custodian at this school site is omitting these 3 things from their checklist. We need to do something about it. Whether the custodian isn't doing it for some other reason, well, then you can maybe correct that. But you need that base place to start from. And then just highlighting the train, measure, report. And this has been really a godsend to me. I learned this decades ago, and this has helped me, especially as you, over the years, you get promoted, you have greater responsibilities, and the more responsibility that you have, the less detail that you used to know. And I'm sure all of us have seen a manager or supervisor over the years who felt that they had to know everything, and everybody hates that person. And I typically do. So one of the things I've learned, and Joe, I learned this a bit from you too, with a good director, somebody who's competent, experienced, they're going to want to depend on you, or at least convey that they're depending on you, so that you're the expert in whatever that subject matter is. So when your plumber comes into your office, I assure you, your plumber doesn't necessarily want you to be an expert in plumbing. Your plumber wants to be your expert in plumbing. So they want you to ask them plumbing questions. They want you to come to them with plumbing issues, and they want you to ask them, how do we solve this complex issue? Even if you may know the answer, but by having that kind of approach to let your staff be the experts, it allows you to concentrate on not plumbing, not electrical, not custodial. It allows you to take whatever you have and make it better. So take all those reports, combine them, consolidate, get them into useful measurements of sorts, any kind of number of work orders, or get some sort of measurement to be able to evaluate the effectiveness of it, checklist, rating list, however you do it. And now you have something that you can, a real game plan as to being able to improve what you have. Now, I want to highlight, and Joe, I don't know if you want to kind of reemphasize this too. This is so critical to buildings. As Joe mentioned, buildings can't speak for themselves. We know this paragraph, this safe, effective, well-maintained learning environment for students. We know that we can improve upon this by us doing our job. Joe, I don't know if you want to chime in or add anything to it.
Thanks, Tom. This is an old quote. It's one of my favorites. It was testimony during the Williams lawsuit, but it still holds true today. All research, peer-reviewed research, has shown that there is a direct link between well-maintained buildings, school buildings, and student achievement. The importance of that is we're in the education business, obviously. We work with a lot of educators. It's so important to put things in terms that they understand. And student achievement is one of them. If the roof leaks, like Dennis's roof leak, that impacts instruction. If the HVAC goes out and it's 100 degrees out, that impacts instruction and impacts student achievement. So I always try to put things in terms that they understand. It's money for sure, but our main goal is to make sure that kids are getting a quality education. So anyway, there's all kinds of data on this. You can look it up, you can Google it. Dr. Don Ulrich from Clovis Unified, his dissertation has a ton of information on it, and I know Don would be happy to share that with you as well. Another really good resource here, besides CASH, of course, is the second one from the bottom, National Center for Education Statistics. It's a huge website with a lot of information. You go to the school planning guide. School planning guide, and you'll find all kinds of info on staffing, on best practices, on planning, and all kinds of things to do with maintenance and operation. So with that, Captain Tom from the Starship Facilitron, Dennis Ziegler from Lake Elsinore. So we conclude and encourage people, if you have any questions, please let us know. Send us an email, give us a call. We'd be happy to answer them. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.